Some stories find us when we least expect them. I've lived long enough to know that grace, the real kind, doesn't knock politely. It shows up dusty and worn, asking nothing but a chance. In my 63 years on this earth, I've learned that the emptiest hearts often guard the deepest wells. This is a story about two people who'd forgotten how to hope, and the quiet courage it takes to open a door you swore you'd keep shut forever. It happened in ranch country, where the land doesn't lie and neither do the eyes of strangers. If you've ever lost something precious and wondered if life had anything left to offer, this one's for you. The knock came at dusk. Marcus sat in his dead wife's rocking chair, coffee gone cold in the tin cup he'd been holding for the better part of an hour. 3 years since Martha passed, and he still couldn't bring himself to move that chair off the porch. The field stretched out before him, gone to seed, choked with thistle, looking exactly the way he felt inside. He heard her footsteps a full minute before she appeared. That was the thing about silence, you learn to hear everything, whether you wanted to or not. She stood at the bottom of the porch steps, young, dust on her calico dress, mended at the sleeve with thread that didn't match. Carpet bag clutched in both hands, like it held everything she owned in this world. Probably did. Her boots were worn clean through at the soles, but polished. That detail stopped him. "I just need work," she said. "No, please. No, sir. Just the fact of it." Plain as the dirt under her fingernails. From the data we've received, about 60% of our viewers haven't yet subscribed or liked our channel. If this story has touched your heart, we'd be grateful if you'd hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Thank you kindly. Friends. Marcus didn't move from the chair. "Ain't hiring?" She didn't flinch, didn't step back, just shifted her weight like she'd been standing in one place for years and had learned to make it comfortable. "Didn't ask if you were hiring. Asked if you had work." The corner of his mouth twitched. He killed it before it became anything. "You runnin' from something. Runnin' to something." She tilted her chin up an inch. "There's a difference." "Reckon there is." He looked at her hands, calluses on the palms, a healing cut across the knuckle of her right thumb. Working hands, not soft, not pretty, the kind of hands that knew their way around a washboard and a hoe. "Well's over there." He pointed with his cup. "Barn's got a clean corner if you need it tonight." She nodded once, walked to the well, pumped the handle 3 times before water came. She'd done this before. Knew you had to prime it. Drank slow, cupping the water in her hands, not wasting a drop. Marcus watched her cross to the barn. The door creaked on its hinges. He should oil that. Should do a lot of things. He didn't move until full dark swallowed the porch. First light. Marcus headed out to feed the chickens. The coop was already clean. Fresh straw, water trough filled. Grace stood in the middle of the yard, scattering feed from the wooden basket he hadn't touched in months. She was humming something low, some tune he didn't recognize. "You're up early." "Don't sleep much." He grunted, walked past her to the barn. The days blurred together after that. 5 of them, 6. Grace worked without being asked, without expecting conversation. The vegetable garden, dead 2 seasons now, showed the first signs of clearing by the 4th morning. Weeds pulled, soil turned. On the 6th evening, the smell reached him half a mile out. Biscuits, butter, something underneath cinnamon. Maybe Martha used to. He pushed the thought down, rode the rest of the way in silence. The kitchen door stood open. Lamplight spilled across the porch boards. He stopped in the doorway. Grace stood at the stove, her back to him, blue apron tied at her waist. Flour dusted across the pockets. Martha's apron. His hands went still on the doorframe. She turned, saw his face, looked down at the fabric. "I found it in a drawer. I can take it off if—" "No." The word came out rough. "No. It's fine." 2 plates sat on the table, 2 cups, 2 forks. He ate standing at the counter. That night, past midnight, he couldn't sleep, walked to the window. Lamplight leaked gold beneath the barn door. Marcus pulled on his boots, told himself he was checking the mare's hoof. She'd been favoring her left front leg that afternoon. Could be a stone, could be the start of something worse. The night air hit him cold against his face. No moon. Stars scattered thick across the black. His boots crunched on the dry grass. The lamp glow under the barn door grew brighter as he approached. He stopped at the entrance. Listened. Nothing. No humming. No movement. He pushed the door open slow. Grace sat on the hay bales in the corner, her back curved forward, shoulders pulled in tight. A tallow candle guttered in a tin holder beside her. The flame caught the wet tracks on her cheeks before she could turn away. Paper in her hands, folded soft from handling, creased and recreased so many times the edges had gone fuzzy. She heard the door creak, her head came up fast. She shoved the paper behind her back, too slow. "I wasn't looking to trouble you with my business." Her voice came out rough. She swiped at her face with the back of her hand. "Little late for that." He stood in the doorway. The mare shifted in her stall, her breath fogging in the cool air, hay smell and horse smell, and the faint sweetness of the tallow burning down. Grace didn't move. The paper crinkled behind her back. "You gonna tell me, or do I got to guess?" She looked at him for a long moment. Her jaw tightened, then loosened. Something in her shoulders gave way, like a rope that had been pulled too tight, finally snapping. She brought the paper out, held it toward him. He crossed the barn floor, took it. The paper felt thin between his fingers, worn almost to cloth. The handwriting was uneven, childish, letters slanting different directions, like the person holding the pen hadn't quite learned to control it yet. Ink smeared in places, water damage, or tears. He couldn't tell. "Gracie, they say I belong to them now. The man is mean, and the woman don't talk. I work from sun up, and my hands hurt. Gracie, please, please find me. I don't know where I am, but they call it Copper Creek. Please, Gracie. I will be good, I promise. Your sister Lily." Marcus read it twice. His jaw worked side to side, grinding against something bitter. "She was 8 when they took her." Grace's voice dropped low. "She'd be 11 now." He looked up from the letter. The candlelight threw shadows across her face, hollowing her cheeks, making her look older than she was. "Took her how?" Grace pulled the woolen blanket tighter around her shoulders. "You ever hear of the auction system?" He shook his head. "Orphans, children nobody claims, the county puts them up. Families bid on them, supposed to be for their care." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. What it really means is cheap labor. You get a child, you work them until they're used up. Then you send them back or sell the contract to someone else. The mare stamped her hoof. The candle flame danced. "Lily and me, we got separated when I was 14. Different farms. I ran when I turned 17. Been looking for her ever since." Grace's hands twisted in the blanket. "Got word 6 months ago she ended up with a family called Harlan, out past Copper Creek. That's 3 days by wagon." "I know. And you were gonna walk, if I had to. I went to the law, in 2 other towns before I came here." Her voice went flat. "They laughed me out. Said contracts is contracts. Said I had no standing." Marcus handed the letter back. She took it careful, folding it along the same worn creases, tucking it into the pocket of her dress. "What's your plan when you get there? Walk up to their door, ask for her back." Her chin came up. "Take her if they say no." "That ain't a plan. That's a prayer. It's what I got." The candle sputtered. Hot wax dripped down the side of the tin holder, pooling on the hay bale. Grace reached over and pinched the wick, snuffing the flame. Darkness dropped over them like a curtain. "I'll be gone come morning," she said. "I've saved enough from the last 3 towns to get me most of the way by stage. I can walk the rest. I didn't mean to stay this long. Just needed enough for the fare." Marcus stood in the dark. The mare's breathing filled the silence. "You know anything about these Harlans?" "Word is, they work their children like mules. Keep them out of school. Don't let them talk to neighbors." "Word from who?" "A woman in the last town. She'd seen Lily 2 years back. Said the girl looked thin, scared." His hands curled into fists at his sides. He uncurled them. "The law won't help you. Not for something like this. The law never helped people like me." Her voice came flat out of the darkness. "Never expected it to." He turned toward the door, stopped. The night air pressed cold against his back. "I need to check that mare's hoof. It's the middle of the night. Horse don't know what time it is." He walked to the stall, ran his hand down the mare's leg. She lifted her hoof easy, trusting him. He felt around the frog, the sole, the edges of the shoe. Nothing, no stone, no heat. Nothing wrong at all. He set her hoof down, patted her neck, behind him. Grace hadn't moved. He could hear her breathing, steady, waiting. "Copper Creek," he said. "Yes. 3 days there, 3 days back, a week gone, maybe more if there's trouble." Silence. "The ranch won't fall apart in a week." He said it to the horse, to the dark, to no one. "I reckon." He walked out of the barn without looking back, crossed the yard, climbed the porch steps, went inside. The house was black and cold. He didn't light a lamp, just sat in the chair by the window and stared at nothing, while the night crawled toward morning. Martha used to say he had a talent for closing doors, shutting things out, pretending the world stopped at the fence line and nothing beyond it could touch him. She'd been wrong about a lot of things, but not that. The sky went gray at the edges, then pink, then gold. Marcus stood. His knees cracked. His back ached from sitting all night in a hard chair. He walked out to the barn and started hitching the buckboard wagon. Grace appeared in the doorway before he'd finished with the second horse. Her carpet bag hung from one hand, the other pressed flat against the doorframe. "What are you doing?" He didn't look at her, just pulled the harness strap tight. "Copper Creek's 3 days by wagon. 4 if we hit mud." Grace stood frozen in the barn doorway. The carpet bag slipped in her grip. She caught it before it hit the ground. "I didn't ask you to, didn't say you did." Marcus buckled the last strap on the harness. The leather creaked as the horses shifted their weight. Dawn light crept across the yard, turning the dust gold. "Why?" He didn't answer, just walked past her into the barn and came out with 2 cotton bedrolls tucked under his arm. They smelled like cedar. Martha had lined the chest with cedar blocks to keep the moths out. He tossed them into the wagon bed. Grace watched him make 3 more trips, a sack of dried beans, a tin of coffee, the iron Dutch oven, tied down with rope so it wouldn't rattle, a wooden water barrel strapped to the tailgate. "You can't just leave your ranch. Watch me, she set her jaw. I don't need charity. Marcus stopped, turned, looked at her straight on for the first time since he'd started loading. You see me offering any? She didn't have an answer for that. He pointed to the wagon seat. You coming or not? Grace climbed up. Her carpet bag sat between her feet. Inside it, wrapped in a scrap of clean muslin, was her medicine bundle, dried yarrow. Chamomile, strips of boiled cloth. She'd been carrying it since she was 15. Never knew when you'd need to patch yourself up and couldn't afford a doctor. She'd also patched her boots the night before, using leather scraps she'd found in the barn. The stitching was rough, but it would hold. Marcus swung up beside her. The seat creaked under his weight. He reached under it and pulled out a small tin box, checked the contents, paper money and a few coins, then tucked it back. Sold 3 head of cattle before Martha passed, he said, not looking at her. Money's been sitting there ever since. Might as well use it for something. He took the reins in both hands, clicked his tongue twice. The horses moved forward. The wagon wheels groaned against the packed dirt. Neither of them looked back. The sun climbed higher. The road stretched out ahead, rutted and pale, cutting through scrubland dotted with mesquite and creosote bush. Heat pressed down. Grace untied her bonnet and fanned her face with it. Marcus kept his eyes on the road. His hands stayed loose on the reins. He drove like a man who'd done this 1,000 times and stopped thinking about it somewhere around the 500th. They passed the Miller place, the Johnson place, empty fields waiting for planting. A windmill turning slow in the distance, its blades catching the light. The property line came up just past the old stone marker that had been there since before Marcus bought the land. A fence ran along it. Posts weathered gray, wire sagging in places. Old Tom leaned against the fence, tobacco working in his cheek, his hat pushed back on his head, showing the pale line where the sun hadn't touched. Well now, Tom spat into the dust. Didn't figure you for the traveling type no more. Marcus. Marcus pulled the horses to a stop. The wagon rocked once and settled. Morning, Tom. Tom's eyes moved to Grace, then back to Marcus. His expression didn't change, but something shifted behind it, a question forming. Heard talk in town yesterday, Tom said, working his tobacco from one cheek to the other. Young woman asking about orphan contracts, about a family out past Copper Creek. He squinted at Grace. Reckon that'd be you. Grace's hands tightened on her carpet bag. She kept her eyes forward. News travels fast, Marcus said. Always does, especially when it involves the Harlans. Tom leaned forward on the fence rail. You know what you're getting into? Nope. That's either brave or stupid. Reckon it's Tuesday. Tom laughed, a short, rough sound that ended in a cough. He straightened up. His knees cracked loud enough to hear from the wagon. Earl Harlan ain't a man who takes kindly to folks poking around his business. Lost his wife and boys to fever some years back. Turned mean after that. Meaner than he was before. And that's saying something. We're not looking for trouble. Trouble don't much care what you're looking for. Tom stepped back from the fence. You need anything while you're gone. Someone to check on the stock. I'd be grateful. Consider it done. Tom lifted his hand in a half wave. Lord willin', you'll be back inside a week. Marcus clicked the horses forward. The wagon lurched and found its rhythm. Tom's figure shrank behind them, growing smaller with every turn of the wheels until he was just a dark spot against the gray fence. Grace let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. He knows. Tom knows everything that happens in 3 counties. Doesn't mean he talks about it to just anybody. Will he tell people where we went? Only if they ask nice. Marcus kept his eyes on the road. And nobody asks Tom nice about anything. The sun climbed toward noon. The road curved around a dry creek bed, then straightened again. The wagon axle squeaked with every rotation, a high, thin sound that set Grace's teeth on edge. You should oil that. Should do a lot of things. She almost smiled, caught herself. They stopped at midday beside a cluster of cottonwood trees that offered thin shade. Grace climbed down and stretched her legs, while Marcus watered the horses from a leather bucket. Her back ached from the hard seat. Her shoulders felt tight across the top. She walked a few paces from the wagon, looked back at the road they'd come down. The ranch was long gone. Nothing but scrubland and sky in every direction. You ever been this far from home? Marcus poured the last of the water into the bucket. Depends what you mean by home. The ranch. The ranch was Martha's idea. He hung the bucket on the side of the wagon. I just came with it. Grace turned that over in her mind, filed it away. They ate cold biscuits and dried meat without talking. The horses stamped at flies. A hawk circled overhead. Riding the thermals, its shadow sliding across the ground. Marcus finished his food, brushed the crumbs from his hands, stood. We should make another 10 miles before dark. Grace climbed back onto the wagon seat. Her legs protested. She ignored them. The afternoon passed slow. The landscape changed inch by inch, more rocks. Less scrub. The occasional cactus, standing like a sentinel against the skimau. The road grew rougher. The wagon bounced and jolted over ruts and stones. How long were you married? Marcus didn't answer right away. His jaw worked side to side the way it did when he was chewing on something that wasn't food. 12 years. That's a good stretch. It was. Grace watched the road. A lizard darted across it, quick as a blink, and disappeared into the brush. What happened to her? Fever. The word came out flat. Took 3 weeks. Nothing the doctor did made any difference. I'm sorry. Don't be. Wasn't your doing. The sun dropped lower. The shadows stretched long across the road, turning the ruts into dark stripes. The air cooled. Grace pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders. We'll make camp up ahead. Marcus pointed with his chin toward a rocky outcrop in the distance. There's a spring. Good water. They reached the outcrop as the last light faded. Marcus unhitched the horses and hobbled them near the spring. Grace gathered kindling dry mesquite branches, dead grass, a few chunks of dried dung she found scattered behind a rock. The fire caught easy. Flames licked up through the kindling and settled into a steady burn. Grace fed it larger branches while Marcus set the coffee pot on a flat stone at the fire's edge. Stars came out, first one, then a dozen, then too many to count. Grace sat on her bedroll with her knees pulled up to her chest. The fire popped and crackled. The coffee smell rose thick and bitter. Can I ask you something? Marcus poured coffee into 2 tin cups, handed one to her. Already are. Why are you really doing this? He sat down across the fire from her, took a long sip from his cup. The firelight caught the lines on his face, deep grooves around his mouth, crow's feet at the corners of his eyes. You ever look at your life and realize you stopped living it somewhere along the way? Grace didn't answer. Martha used to say I had a talent for closing doors. Marcus stared into the flames, shutting things out. She wasn't wrong. The fire settled lower. An ember popped and shot sparks into the dark. Maybe I'm tired of being right about that. Grace wrapped both hands around her cup. The warmth seeped into her fingers. Somewhere in the distance, A coyote howled. Another answered. Then silence. "Copper Creek," she said quietly. "What do you know about it?" Marcus set his cup down. His face changed. Something darker moved behind his eyes. "I know a man got killed there 2 years back, over a property dispute." Grace's stomach clenched. "And the man who killed him—" Marcus looked at her across the dying fire. "Earl Harlan. They never proved it, but everybody knows." Grace didn't sleep that night. She lay on her bedroll with her eyes open, staring at the stars wheeling slow overhead. The fire had burned down to coals, casting a dull red glow across the campsite. Marcus's breathing came steady from the other side, not quite snoring, but close. Harlan. The name sat in her chest like a stone. She'd known the family might be trouble. The woman in the last town had warned her. But killing a man, that was different. That changed everything. Or maybe it changed nothing. Lily was still in that house, still waiting. The sky lightened by slow degrees, gray to pale blue to pink at the edges. Grace pushed herself up before Marcus stirred. Her back ached from the hard ground. Her eyes burned from no sleep. She built the fire back up, set the coffee pot on its flat stone. The flames licked at the blackened bottom, and soon the smell of brewing coffee cut through the morning chill. Marcus sat up, pushed his hat back from his face. His eyes were red-rimmed. "You didn't sleep either," Grace said. "Nope." They ate cold biscuits and drank their coffee without talking. The horses stamped and snorted, ready to move. The sun climbed higher, burning off the thin mist that clung to the low places. The road stretched ahead, winding through rocky terrain. More hills now, juniper and scrub oak clinging to the slopes. The wagon jolted over stones, the axle squeaking its high, thin complaint. "Tell me about her." Marcus glanced sideways at Grace. "Who? Martha?" His hands tightened on the reins, then loosened. He was quiet for so long, Grace thought he wouldn't answer. "She made coffee too strong." His voice came out rough, like it hadn't been used for this kind of thing in years. "Every single morning, I'd tell her, and she'd laugh and do the same thing the next day." Grace waited. Sang off key, hymns mostly. Didn't matter that she couldn't carry a tune, she sang anyway, loud enough to scare the chickens. The corner of his mouth twitched, and she laughed at her own jokes, even the bad ones, especially the bad ones. He fell silent. The wagon wheels turned. A crow called from somewhere in the brush. "I missed that laugh, something terrible." Grace didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. She knew what it was like to miss someone so much. It felt like a hole in your chest that nothing could fill. She was sick a long time. Long enough. He didn't say more. Didn't need to. The sun climbed toward noon. The landscape opened up a wide valley stretching between two ridges. The road, cutting straight through the middle, dust rose behind the wagon, hanging in the still air. The sound of wheels reached them before the cart came into view. A mule cart, smaller than theirs, painted black with dust. A man sat on the seat, reins loose in his hands. He wore a black coat despite the heat, a white collar at his throat. The cart pulled alongside them. The man smiled. Crow's feet spread from the corners of his eyes. "Afternoon, friends. The road where traveling preachers often camp. I just came from there myself. Mighty hot day to be moving." "That it is." Marcus pulled the horses to a stop. "Water's good at the spring back yonder, if your mules needs it. Already stopped there this morning. Much obliged for the thought." The preacher climbed down from his seat. His knees popped loud enough to hear. "Name's Reverend Samuel Hicks. Most folks just call me Sam." "Marcus, this is Grace." Grace nodded from her place on the wagon seat. Her bonnet hung loose around her neck. "You folks heading to Copper Creek? That direction." "Careful territory." The Reverend pulled a worn Bible from his coat pocket. The leather cover had cracked along the spine. A red ribbon marked a place somewhere in the middle. "Not many folks travel that road unless they have to." "We have to." The Reverend nodded, didn't press further. They shared a meal in the thin shade of a mesquite tree, cornbread wrapped in wax cloth from the Reverend's pack, beans from Marcus's supplies, water from the barrel. The Reverend ate slow, savoring each bite. "I've been riding this circuit for 30 years, he said between mouthfuls. "Seen a lot of people searching for things, money, land, family." His eyes moved to Grace. "The good book talks about a shepherd who lost 1 sheep out of 100, left the 99 behind to go searching." Grace's hands stilled on her cup. "Most folks think that's foolish, but I've always thought it was the most honest thing in Scripture, because the searching matters, whether you find the sheep or not. The Lord provides for those who seek," he added, brushing crumbs from his coat. Marcus snorted. "The Lord also gave us drought 3 years running. Reckon he's got a sense of humor." The Reverend laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that startled the mule. "That he does, son. That he surely does." They finished the meal. The Reverend climbed back onto his cart, gathered his reins. "I'll be praying for you both, whatever you're searching for. I hope you find it." The cart rolled away. Dust rose behind it. Hanging in the still air, Grace watched until it disappeared around a bend in the road. "You believe all that about the searching mattering?" Marcus took his time answering. Watched the dust settle, felt the heat pressing down on his shoulders. "I believe in showing up. Rest is above my pay grade." They pushed on through the afternoon. The road grew steeper, winding up into hills covered with scrub oak and juniper. The horses labored. The wagon groaned. Grace's throat went dry despite the water she'd drunk at noon. Evening found them at the crest of a ridge. Below, spread out like a map, lay a valley. A town sat at its center small. Maybe 20 buildings clustered around a single main street. "Copper Creek," Grace's voice came out rough. Marcus pulled the horses to a stop. Let them breathe. The town looked ordinary enough from here, a church steeple catching the last light, a water tower standing tall at one end, smoke rising from chimneys. But beyond the town, out past the edge of the valley where the land turned rough again, Marcus could see a farmhouse, small, isolated. No other buildings near it. The Harlan place. Grace sat rigid beside him. Her hands had clenched into fists on her knees. "We'll camp here tonight. Go into town in the morning." "I could..." "In the morning." His voice came out harder than he meant it to. He softened. "We do this right, or we don't get another chance." She didn't argue. They made camp in a hollow just below the ridgeline. The fire burned low, no sense advertising their presence to anyone watching from the valley below. Marcus lay on his bedroll and stared at the stars. His eyes burned. He splashed water from the canteen on his face, but it didn't help much. Somewhere down there, in that isolated farmhouse, a girl named Lily was sleeping. Or not sleeping. Wondering if anyone was coming for her. The wind shifted, carried with it a faint sound from the valley below. A dog barking. Once, twice, then silence. Grace sat up on her bedroll. Her eyes met his across the dying embers. "He knows someone's coming," she whispered. "Harlan, he has to." Marcus didn't answer. In a town that small, with a road that empty, a wagon coming over the ridge would have been spotted hours ago. Word traveled fast in places like this, faster than horses, faster than good intentions. By morning, Earl Harlan would know exactly who was looking for him. Copper Creek looked smaller up close than it had from the ridge. 20 buildings, maybe 25, clustered along a single dirt street that ran straight through the center of town, a church at one end, its white steeple faded to gray, a water tower at the other, rust streaking down its sides like old blood. 3 saloons crammed between a blacksmith and a feed store. Marcus guided the wagon past the livery stable. A man looked up from shoeing a horse, watched them pass, then went back to his work. 2 women standing outside the dry goods store stopped talking mid-sentence. Eyes everywhere, watching, measuring. "General store," Marcus said, nodding toward a building with a hand-lettered sign in the window. "Crawford's Mercantile." Below it, in smaller letters, "Fair prices, honest goods." He pulled the horses to a stop. The wagon creaked as he climbed down. Grace stayed in her seat, hands folded in her lap, knuckles pale. "You coming?" She climbed down slow. Her legs had gone stiff from sitting. She stamped, feeling back into them, and followed Marcus up the wooden steps. The store smelled like lamp oil and tobacco and dried beans. Barrels lined the walls, flour, sugar, pickles, crackers. A brass scale sat on the counter, its weights arranged in a neat row. Behind the counter stood a man in his 50s, gray at the temples, spectacles perched on the end of his nose. He looked up when they entered. His eyes moved from Marcus to Grace and back again. "Help you folks. Looking for supplies." Marcus pulled a list from his pocket. "Coffee, salt, some dried meat if you have it." "Got all that." The storekeeper didn't move to fill the order, just stood there, watching. "Passing through. Might be. Might be." The storekeeper repeated it back like he was tasting the words, finding them sour. "Not many folks pass through Copper Creek. Not much here worth stopping for." Marcus set the list on the counter. "We're looking for someone." The air in the store changed. The storekeeper's face went still, carefully blank. An old man sitting by the pickle barrel stopped whittling. The knife in his hand hovered over the wood, motionless. "That's so. Family called Harlan. We heard they live out past town." The storekeeper's jaw tightened. He took off his spectacles, cleaned them with a cloth from his pocket, put them back on. The whole operation took maybe 15 seconds. Felt like an hour. "The Harlans. Yep. Out past Miller Creek. Take the east road. Follow it about 3 miles. Can't miss it. They good people." Silence. The old man by the pickle barrel started whittling again. The scrape of blade against wood filled the quiet. "They keep to themselves." Grace stepped forward. Her voice came out steady, but Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands had curled into fists at her sides. "They have a girl working for them. Young, about 11 years old." The storekeeper's expression flickered. Something moved behind his eyes, its recognition. Maybe. Or pity. "Lots of folks have children working their farms. Nothing unusual about that. This girl isn't their child." Grace's chin came up. "She's my sister." The whittling stopped again. The storekeeper looked at Grace for a long moment. His face softened by degrees, the careful blankness giving way to something more complicated. "You got papers. Something official." "I've got a letter she wrote me, and I've got my own 2 eyes that watched her get taken away when she was 8 years old." The storekeeper glanced at the old man by the barrel. Some silent communication passed between them. The old man shrugged and went back to his whittling. "Sheriff Bennett's a fair man." The storekeeper spoke low, leaning forward over the counter. "If I was looking to make things official, I'd start there. Office is down the street, past the saloon. He's usually in by noon. And if he's not, then you wait." The storekeeper straightened up, started gathering the items from Marcus's list. "Harlan don't take kindly to visitors, especially ones asking about his arrangements. Whatever you're planning, you want the law on your side first." The old man by the pickle barrel cleared his throat. His voice came out like gravel scraping against stone. "Earl Harlan's got a mean streak in him a mile wide. Lost his family some years back, and it turned him sour. You go out there without the sheriff, you might not come back the same way you went in." He went back to his whittling, said nothing more. The storekeeper set the supplies on the counter: coffee, salt, a bundle of dried meat wrapped in brown paper. "That'll be $2 even." Marcus paid, gathered the supplies. Grace hadn't moved from her spot near the door. "Thank you," she said. The words came out stiff, reluctant. The storekeeper nodded. "Be careful out there, both of you." They walked back to the wagon. The eyes followed them from doorways, from windows, from the bench outside the saloon where 3 men sat with their boots up on the railing. "We should find the sheriff," Grace said as Marcus loaded the supplies. "Tomorrow. But it's past noon already. We don't know this town. Don't know who's friendly and who's not." He climbed onto the wagon seat. "We camp outside town tonight. Watch the Harlan place. Figure out what we're dealing with." Grace's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. She climbed up beside him. They rode out of town the way they'd come in, past the livery stable, past the church with its faded steeple, past the water tower with its rust stains. The eyes followed them until they crested the first hill and dropped down the other side. Marcus found a spot in a stand of juniper, hidden from the road, but with a clear view of the valley below. They made camp without a fire, ate cold biscuits and dried meat, drank water from the barrel. Grace didn't touch her food. "You need to eat." "I'm not hungry." "Didn't ask if you were hungry. Said you need to eat." She picked up a biscuit, broke off a piece, put it in her mouth and chewed without tasting. The sun dropped lower. Shadows stretched across the valley. The Harlan farm sat at the far edge, isolated, the only building for half a mile in any direction. No trees around it, no cover. Marcus pulled his field glasses from his saddlebag. The lenses were scratched, but they still worked. He put them to his eyes and adjusted the focus. The farmhouse came into view. Small, single story, weathered boards that might have been painted white once, now gone gray and peeling. The fence posts sagged. The gate hung crooked on its hinges, no flowers in the yard, no curtains in the windows. "Let me see." He handed the glasses to Grace. She pressed them to her eyes. Her hands trembled. She steadied them against her face. For a long moment, nothing happened. Just the farmhouse sitting there, still and silent. Then the back door opened. A figure emerged, small, carrying 2 wooden buckets, one in each hand. The buckets looked too big, too heavy. The figure's shoulders curved inward under the weight. Grace's breath caught. The figure crossed the yard toward the well, set down the buckets, worked the pump handle with both hands, pulling hard, her whole body leaning into the motion. She was thin, too thin. Her dress hung loose handed down, patched at the knees, the hem dragging in the dirt. Her hair was pulled back tight, but strands had escaped, hanging limp around a face that looked older than 11 years. She moved like someone who had forgotten what it felt like to not be tired. Grace's knuckles went white around the field glasses. "Lily." The word came out broken, half whisper, half sigh. She started to rise from behind the juniper. Marcus's hand closed around her arm. "Not like this." "That's my sister." Grace's voice cracked. "That's Lily. I can see her. She's right there. And if you go running down there right now, what happens? Harlan sees you coming. He's got time to hide her. Or worse, we've got nothing official, nothing legal. He can have us arrested for trespassing. I don't care. You should." He tightened his grip on her arm. Not enough to hurt, enough to hold her there. "We do this right, or we don't get another chance. You said it yourself, the law never helped people like you. Maybe it's time to find out if that can change." Grace's whole body was shaking. Her eyes stayed fixed on the distant figure by the well. Lily filled both buckets, lifted them, staggered under the weight, started back toward the house, halfway across the yard. She stopped. She turned, looked up toward the ridge where Marcus and Grace were hidden. Her face was too far away to read, even through the glasses, but she stood there for a long moment, staring. Then she turned and disappeared into the house. Grace lowered the field glasses. Her face had gone pale, her lips pressed together in a thin line. "She knows," Grace whispered. "She knows someone's watching." Marcus took the glasses back, raised them to his eyes. A curtain twitched in the farmhouse window. The sun hung low over the ridge when Marcus saddled his horse. "Stay here." Grace stopped pacing. Her boots had worn a path in the dirt. Back and forth, back and forth. The same 10 feet over and over. "I should come with you." "No. She's my sister, and if Harlan sees you, sees how much you want her back, he'll know exactly how much leverage he's got." Marcus tightened the cinch strap. The horse shifted under his hands. "I go alone. Feel him out. See what we're dealing with." Grace's jaw worked. Her fists clenched at her sides, but she didn't argue. Marcus swung up into the saddle. The leather creaked beneath him. He looked down at Grace, her face pale in the fading light. Her eyes fixed on the distant farmhouse. "If I'm not back by full dark, ride into town, find the sheriff, and tell him what? The truth." He kicked the horse forward before she could respond. The ride down took longer than it looked. The terrain was rough rocks and gullies and sudden drops that forced him to pick his way careful. The light faded by degrees, turning the scrubland gray, then purple, then the deep blue of coming night. The Harlan farmhouse grew larger as he approached. The closer he got, the worse it looked. Paint peeling in long strips, boards warped and splitting, a chicken coop with wire hanging loose, a barn that listed to one side like a drunk leaning against a wall. No lamp in the windows, no smoke from the chimney. But a dog started barking before he reached the gate. Marcus reined in, waited. The front door opened. Earl Harlan stepped onto the porch. He was lean, worn down to bone and sinew, the kind of thin that came from hard work and harder living. His face was weathered leather, creased deep around the mouth and eyes. Gray stubble covered his jaw. His clothes hung loose pants held up with rope, shirt missing a button at the collar. A shotgun rested broken open over his arm. "That's far enough." Marcus stopped his horse at the gate, kept his hands visible on the saddle horn. "Evening. Name's Marcus. I'm looking to talk." "Don't recall inviting conversation." Harlan's eyes moved over Marcus, taking in the horse, the clothes, The way he sat in the saddle, measuring. Long way from anywhere. You lost? No, sir. Came here on purpose. That's so. Harlan shifted the shotgun, not pointing it, just reminding Marcus it was there. What purpose would that be? You've got a girl working for you, young, about 11 years old. Harlan's face didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes, a door closing. Got a contract for that girl, legal, paid money. I know, I'm looking to buy it out. Silence. A coyote called somewhere in the distance. Another answered. The dog stopped barking and sat down at Harlan's feet, watching Marcus with yellow eyes. Ain't for sale. Everything's for sale. Just a matter of price. You deaf? Harlan's voice went flat, cold. I said she ain't for sale. She works, she eats. That's more than most orphans get. More than she deserves. Probably. Marcus felt heat rising in his chest, pushed it down. Name your price. I can get money. It'll take time, but you got some nerve riding onto my land. Harlan took a step forward. The porch boards groaned under his weight, telling me what to do with what's mine. She's not yours. She's a child. She's labor, same as a horse, same as a plow. Harlan's lip curled. You want to waste your time feeling sorry for every stray the county throws out. That's your business. But you come onto my property, trying to take what I paid for. That's my business. The dog growled low in its throat. Marcus's horse shifted. Sensing the tension, he tightened his grip on the reins. Her sister's looking for her. Been looking for 3 years. Sister. Harlan spat the word like it tasted bad. That the woman you rode into town with, the one asking questions at Crawford's store. Marcus's stomach dropped. Word traveled fast in places like this. Faster than horses, faster than good intentions. Figured you'd come sniffing around eventually. Harlan smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Whole town's talking about you. Stranger shows up with a woman, starts asking about the Harlans. Doesn't take a genius to put it together. I'm offering you money. More than you paid for her contract. And I'm telling you to get off my land before I do something we'll both regret. Marcus sat still in the saddle. The heat in his chest had turned to something else. Something colder. You think the law won't get involved? The law, Harlan laughed, a dry, cracking sound. The law knows exactly what I do. The law looks the other way because it's easier, because nobody cares about orphan girls and county contracts and the men who make use of them. He stepped back toward the door. The dog followed. Go back where you came from. Take that woman with you. And don't let me catch you on my land again. The door slammed shut. Marcus sat there for a long moment. The horse stamped. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of dust and dry grass and something sour from the barn. He turned and rode away. The trip back up the ridge felt longer than the trip down. The darkness had settled in thick, and he had to trust the horse to find its footing on the rocky ground. Grace was waiting at the edge of the camp. She started toward him before he'd even dismounted. What happened? What did he say? Marcus swung down from the saddle. His legs felt weak. His hands shook as he tied off the reins. He won't sell. Grace's face crumpled. Not with tears, with something worse. Something that looked like all the hope draining out of her at once. What do you mean he won't sell? You offered him money. He doesn't want money. He wants... Marcus stopped. Tried again. He thinks he owns her. Like property, like a horse. She's not a horse. She's my sister. I know that. He pulled off his hat, ran his fingers through his hair. His hands were still shaking. He knows you're here, knows why you came. The whole town knows. Grace sat down on a rock. Her legs had given out beneath her. She stared at the ground between her feet. Then it's over. No. What else is there? Her voice came out hollow, empty. You said yourself the law won't help. He's got papers. He's got money. What do I have? Nothing. I've got nothing. She looked up at him. Her eyes were dry, but something in them had broken. 3 years. 3 years I have been looking for her, working farms, saving pennies, walking until my feet bled. And for what? To stand on a ridge and watch her carry water buckets while some man tells me she belongs to him. Her voice cracked. I can't even go to her. I can't even let her know I'm here. I'm her sister, and I can't do anything. Marcus didn't answer. You should go home. Grace's voice dropped to a whisper. This isn't your fight. It never was. I dragged you into this, and I had no right. You didn't drag me anywhere. Then why are you here? She stood, took a step toward him. Is it because of Martha? Because you lost her, and you think helping me will somehow make up for... Don't. The word came out sharp, harder than he meant it to. Grace stopped. The silence stretched between them. The fire had died to embers. The stars wheeled overhead, cold and distant. I looked at him, Marcus said finally. His voice dropped low. Harlan, standing on his porch with his shotgun and his dog and his empty eyes. And I saw... He stopped. His throat had closed up. You saw what... I saw what I was turning into. He met her eyes. 3 years alone, shutting everything out, telling myself it was easier that way. Another few years, I'd have been him. Same emptiness, same meanness, same excuse that none of it mattered because the world had already taken everything worth having. Grace didn't speak. Your sister's in that house, and I don't know if we can get her out. But I know I can't ride away and pretend I never saw what I saw. A long moment passed. The storekeeper said the sheriff's a fair man. He did. Then we try. Tomorrow. First light. Grace's voice had steadied. Something hard underneath it now. And if the law it won't help. Marcus picked up his bedroll, shook it out. Then we figure out something else. He lay down with his back to the fire, the cold ground pressed against his shoulders. Somewhere in the valley, a dog barked once and fell silent. Grace's voice came out of the darkness. He said everybody knows about the Harlans, the sheriff, the town, everybody. That's what he said. So why hasn't anyone done anything? Marcus stared at the stars. Because she's nobody's daughter. Nobody's sister, just another name on a county contract. She's my sister, I know. He pulled his hat over his eyes. Tomorrow we make sure everybody else knows it too. The night stretched on. Neither of them slept. Grace's hands shook as she poured what was left of the coffee, cold now, into her cup. And somewhere in the darkness, in a farmhouse at the edge of the valley, Marcus wondered if a small figure lay awake too, watching the window, waiting for a dawn that felt like it might never come. The sheriff's office smelled like cold ash and old paper. Marcus pushed open the door. Grace followed close behind. Her carpet bag clutched in both hands. The floorboards creaked under their boots. A man sat behind a desk near the window. Gray at the temples, steady hands folded on the talk in front of him, a star pinned to his vest. Tarnished around on the edges, he looked up when they entered, and his eyes moved from Marcus to Grace and back again with the slow, measuring gaze of someone who'd learned not to rush judgment. Help you folks. Sheriff Bennett. That's me. He leaned back in his chair. The wood groaned. "You're the ones asking about the Harlans." Word traveled fast. Marcus had expected that. "We are." "Have a seat." Bennett nodded toward two chairs against the wall. "Tell me what this is about." Grace sat. Her hands shook as she opened her carpet bag and pulled out the papers she'd been carrying for 3 years. The auction contract, the letter from Lily, both worn soft from handling, creased and recreased along the same lines. She laid them on the desk. Bennett picked up the contract first, read it slow, his lips moving slightly, then the letter. His face changed as he read something tightening around his mouth, something softening behind his eyes. "This your sister." "Yes, sir. And she wrote this 2 years ago. I've been looking for her ever since." Bennett set the papers down, took off his spectacles, rubbed the bridge of his nose. "These contracts." He tapped the auction paper with one finger. "They haven't been worth spit since '75. Territory passed a law. Children can't be bought and sold like livestock. Most folks just don't know that." Grace's breath caught. "What does that mean?" "It means Earl Harlan's been holding your sister under a contract that isn't legal." Bennett put his spectacles back on. "Has been for years. Then I can have a conversation with him." Bennett stood, reached for the hat hanging on a peg beside his desk. "Whether he listens is another matter." Marcus stood too. "You willing to ride out there with us?" "That's my job." Bennett settled the hat on his head. "Though I'd be lying if I said I was looking forward to it." They rode out of town in a line. Bennett first, then Marcus, then Grace. The morning sun threw long shadows across the road. The air smelled like dust and sage. The Harlan farm looked different in daylight. Worse, somehow. The decay more visible, the sagging fence posts, the rotting boards, the yard packed hard and colorless. No dog this time. No movement at all. Bennett reined in at the gate. "Stay here until I call for you." He dismounted, walked up the path. His boots crunched on the dry ground. The front door opened before he reached the porch. Harlan stood in the doorway. No shotgun this time. His hands hung loose at his sides. He looked older in the daylight, smaller somehow. "Tom," his voice came out flat. "Didn't expect official business on a Thursday. Didn't expect to find a child working without proper guardianship papers. Earl." "I got papers. You got toilet paper." Bennett stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. "Territory law changed in '75. Whatever you paid for that contract, you might as well have paid for the deed to the moon." Harlan's jaw tightened. His eyes moved past Bennett to the figures waiting at the gate. "That her, the sister?" "That's her. And the men, just a friend, here to vouch for them. Says they've got a home waiting." Harlan's hands curled into fists, then uncurled. He looked down at the ground, at his boots, at the cracks in the boards beneath his feet. "What if I don't let her go? Then I come back with more badges." Bennett's voice stayed even, almost gentle. "And this becomes something neither of us wants." Silence. A crow called from somewhere beyond the barn. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of dust and dried manure. "I knew you're Mary, Earl." Bennett took a step closer. "Sat next to her in church every Sunday for 15 years. She was a good woman. Kind, always asking after people's children." Harlan's head came up. His eyes went hard. "Don't. She wouldn't have wanted this." Bennett didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. The boys either. They were good boys. They loved their mother. They loved you. I said, don't. What happened to them wasn't your fault. The fever took half the valley that year. Nobody could have stopped it. Harlan's face had gone pale. His hands shook at his sides. You don't know what you're talking about. I know what I saw. A man who lost everything in one season. Wife and 2 sons, all in the span of 3 weeks. Bennett's voice dropped lower. I know what that does to a person. How it makes you want to close everything off, make yourself ward so nothing can ever hurt you again. Marcus felt Grace stiffen beside him. He put a hand on her arm. She stayed still. That girl in there. Bennett nodded toward the house. She didn't take anything from you. She's just a child who lost her family. Same as you lost yours. Only difference is she's still got a chance to get some of it back. Harlan stood motionless. The wind tugged at his shirt. His eyes had gone distant, looking at something no one else could see. She works hard. His voice came out rough, cracked. Never complains. Does what she's told. I'm sure she does. She's not. I never... Harlan stopped, swallowed. I never laid a hand on her. Never. Just made her work. That's all. I know. The contract said... He broke off. His voice had gone thick. I thought it was legal. I thought... He didn't finish. The silence stretched. Then Harlan turned and walked back into the house. The door stayed open behind him. Grace started forward. Marcus held her back. Wait. They waited. A minute passed. 2. The crow called again, closer this time. Then the door opened wider. Lily stood on the threshold. She was smaller than Marcus had expected, thin, her dress hanging loose on her frame. Her hair had been pulled back tight, but strands had escaped, hanging limp around a face that looked too old for 11 years. She held a bundle wrapped in flour sack cloth, everything she owned. Her eyes moved past Bennett, past Marcus, and found Grace. She didn't run, didn't cry out, just stood there, frozen, like she didn't quite believe what she was seeing. Grace pulled free of Marcus's grip, walked toward her sister, slow, careful, like approaching a wild animal that might bolt at any sudden movement. She stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. Lily. The girl's chin trembled. Gracie, I'm here. Grace's voice broke on the words. I'm here. I found you. Lily descended the steps, one at a time. Her legs shook with each one. She reached the bottom and stopped, still clutching her bundle, still staring at Grace like she might disappear. You came. I said I would. Grace reached out. Her hand hovered in the air between them. I promised. Lily looked at the hand, at Grace's face, at the tears running down her sister's cheeks. Then she stepped forward and pressed herself against Grace's chest. They stood like that for a long time, Grace's arms wrapped around her sister, Lily's face buried in Grace's shoulder, neither of them speaking. Marcus watched from the gate. His throat had gone tight, behind them. Harlan appeared in the doorway again. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, watching the 2 sisters hold each other. His face had changed. The hardness was still there, but cracked now, something bleeding through underneath. She knows her letters. His voice came out quiet, almost gentle. I made sure of that. She can read, write a little too. Grace looked up, met his eyes. Thank you. Harlan flinched, like the words had hit him somewhere soft. Just go away. He turned away. Take her and go. He walked back into the house. The door closed behind him. Bennett let out a breath, removed his hat, ran his fingers through his gray hair. Well, that went better than I expected. Marcus walked forward, stopped beside Grace and Lily. We should head back. It's a long ride. Grace nodded. She hadn't let go of her sister's hand. They walked back to the horses. Lily moved slow, looking around at everything: the sky, the hills, the wagon waiting at the gate like she was seeing the world for the first time. "Where are we going?" Grace helped her up onto the wagon seat, climbed up beside her. "Home." "Where's home?" Grace looked at Marcus. He looked back. "We'll figure that out together." They rode away from the Harlan farm. The road stretched out ahead, long and straight, cutting through the valley toward the ridge. The sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the morning mist. Lily sat between them, her bundle in her lap, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "Gracie, yes, is that man coming with us?" She nodded toward Marcus. "If he wants to." Marcus kept his eyes on the road. The corners of his mouth twitched. "Reckon I might." Lily fell silent. She leaned against Grace's shoulder. Her eyes drifted closed. She was asleep before they reached the ridge. The journey home took 3 days. They moved slower this time. The horses needed rest. Lily needed rest. Grace kept looking over her shoulder for the first few miles, like she expected someone to come riding after them and take it all back. Nobody came. Lily slept through most of the first day. She curled up in the wagon bed on the cotton bedrolls, her flour sack bundle tucked under her head like a pillow, her face smoothed out in sleep, losing some of the tightness that had settled there over the years. She looked younger when she slept, closer to 11. Marcus drove. Grace sat beside him. Neither of them talked much. There wasn't much to say. The road stretched out ahead, familiar now, the same ruts and rocks and dust they'd passed on the way out. But something had changed. The silence between them felt different, lighter. On the second day, Lily woke up talking. "What are the horses' names?" Marcus glanced back at her. She sat cross-legged in the wagon bed, her bundle in her lap, watching the horse's hindquarters with focused attention. The bay's called Molly, the roan's Jack. Jack's bigger. He is. Got a mean streak, too. Likes to bite when he's hungry. Marcus clicked his tongue at the horses. "Don't let him fool you with those eyes." Lily leaned forward, studied Jack's ears. "He doesn't look mean." "That's how he gets you." Something flickered across her face, almost a smile, not quite, but close. Grace watched her sister from the corner of her eye, said nothing. They camped that night beside the same creek where they'd stopped on the way out. Same flat rocks, same trickle of water, same stars wheeling overhead. Lily helped gather kindling. Her hands moved quick and sure, sorting the dry branches from the damp, breaking them into pieces small enough to feed the flames. She'd done this before, many times. "You know your way around a campfire," Marcus said. "Mr. Harlan made me build them every morning." She stacked the kindling in a neat pile. "If I did it wrong, I had to start over." Grace's hands stilled on the coffee pot. "He ever hurt you, Harlan?" Lily shook her head. "Just made me work, from sunup to dark, every day." She paused. "He never talked to me much, just told me what to do and went away." "That must have been lonely." "I talked to the chickens." Lily's voice dropped. "They didn't answer, but they listened." The fire caught. Flames licked up through the kindling, casting orange light across their faces. Marcus poured coffee into 3 tin cups, handed one to Grace, held out the third to Lily. She stared at it. "I'm allowed." "It's just coffee." She took the cup with both hands, brought it to her lips, sipped, her face scrunched up at the bitter taste. "It's strong." "Your sister makes it that way." Marcus glanced at Grace. Runs in the family. Grace's mouth twitched. She looked down at her own cup. Martha made it the same way, every morning. I'd tell her it was too strong, and she'd laugh and make it exactly the same the next day. The fire popped. Sparks rose into the dark. "Who's Martha?" Lily asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "She was my wife." "Where is she now?" "Gone. 3 years now." Lily nodded slowly, processing. Her eyes moved from Marcus to Grace and back again. "So are you and Gracie family now?" Grace choked on her coffee. Marcus felt heat rise up the back of his neck. He cleared his throat, looked at the fire. We're not. Because you look at her the way Mr. Harlan used to look at his wife's picture." Lily spoke matter-of-factly. "Before she died, he kept it on the mantel. Sometimes he'd just stand there and stare at it." The silence stretched out. "We should get some sleep." Grace's voice came out rough. "Long day tomorrow." Nobody argued. The third day dawned clear and bright. They broke camp early and pushed hard, making good time on the familiar road. The landscape shifted fewer rocks, more scrubland, the occasional stunted tree. Then, just past noon, the ranch appeared on the rise. Marcus pulled the horses to a stop. Let them breathe. The house sat in the valley below, small against the wide sky. The barn beside it, the chicken coop, the vegetable garden that Grace had started clearing, now gone back to weeds in their absence. It looked the same, ordinary, run down, a place that had been neglected by the man who lived there. But Grace was looking at it different. Marcus could see it in the way she sat up straighter, the way her hands relaxed in her lap. "That's it?" Lily asked. "That's it. It's small. It is." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, "It looks nice." Marcus clicked the horses forward. They reached the house as the sun started dropping toward the hills. Old Tom appeared at the fence line before they'd even unhitched the wagon. He must have been watching the road. "Well now," he leaned on the top rail, tobacco working in his cheek. "Brought back more than you left with." "This is Lily." Grace helped her sister down from the wagon. "She'll be staying with us." Tom's eyes moved from Lily to Grace to Marcus. Something shifted in his weathered face. Understanding, maybe, or approval. "Good to meet you." "Lily." He tipped his hat. "Welcome to the neighborhood." Lily hid behind Grace's skirt. "She's shy," Grace said. "Nothing wrong with shy." Tom pushed off the fence. "Stock's fine. Marcus, checked on them every day like I said. Mare's hoof is better too, was just a stone after all." "Obliged." Tom nodded once and walked back toward his own property. He didn't ask questions, didn't need to. He'd figured out everything he needed to know just by looking. They unloaded the wagon as the light faded. Lily carried her bundle into the house and stopped in the middle of the kitchen, turning in a slow circle, taking everything in. "Where do I sleep?" "Upstairs." Grace pointed toward the narrow staircase. "There's a room at the end of the hall. It was storage, but we can clear it out and—" Lily was already climbing the stairs. Marcus watched her go, then turned to Grace. "I should check on the horses." He walked out to the barn. The horses nickered when they saw him. Tossing their heads, he fed them, watered them, checked their hooves. The familiar routine settled something in his chest. When he came back to the house, Grace was standing by the well. The last light caught her face, turning it gold. "I don't know what to—" "Stay." The word came out before he could stop it. "Both of you. Long as you want." She looked at him. Her eyes were bright, wet at the corners. "Are you sure? Been sure since we left Copper Creek?" He took a step toward her. "Maybe since before that." Grace didn't say anything, just nodded. That evening, Marcus dragged a third chair onto the porch. He'd built it that afternoon from rough pine planks he found in the barn. Nothing fancy, just 4 legs and a seat and a back. It smelled like fresh-cut wood and sawdust. 3 chairs in a row, 3 tin cups of coffee steaming in the cool air. Lily sat in the middle. Her bare feet dangled above the porch boards. She'd already been out to the chicken coop twice, letting the hens peck at her boots, laughing at the way they fought over scraps. "The brown one likes me best. She likes anybody with feed in their pocket." Grace smiled. "That ain't true. She pecked Mr. Marcus yesterday." "She did." Marcus rubbed his hand. "Got me good, too." The stars came out. First 1, then a dozen, then too many to count. Lily leaned against Grace's shoulder. Her eyes had gone heavy. "Gracie, can we plant flowers by the house?" Marcus looked at the bare patch of dirt where Martha's garden used to be. 3 years of neglect had turned it back to nothing, just dry soil and dead roots, and the memory of what used to grow there. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I think that'd be all right." Lily smiled. A real one this time. Small, but real. "I like it here." Grace put her arm around her sister, pulled her close. "Me too." The silence stretched out. Comfortable now, full of things that didn't need saying. Marcus looked at the 2 of them, the woman who'd shown up on his porch asking for work, the girl she'd traveled hundreds of miles to find. Both of them here now, on his porch, in his chairs, drinking his coffee. 3 years he'd been alone, 3 years of shutting doors and closing himself off and pretending that the world ended at his fence line. He hadn't been looking for a family, but a family had found him anyway. "Makes 3 of us, then." The words came out quiet, almost to himself. Grace looked at him over Lily's head. The corner of her mouth lifted. The night deepened. The stars wheeled slow across the sky, somewhere in the distance. A coyote called and another answered. Inside the house, 3 coat hooks hung by the door. The third one still smelled like fresh-cut pine. Marcus had hung it that afternoon, while Grace kneaded dough at the kitchen table and Lily talked to the chickens in the yard. The hammer had tapped. The dough had stretched. The chickens had clucked. Nobody had said anything. Nobody had needed to. On the kitchen table, a packet of flower seeds waited for morning. There is a quiet that settles after a story like this. Not the kind that asks to be filled, but the kind that simply sits with you, like an old friend who knows when words are not needed. Many of us have stood on porches of our own, looking out at fields gone fallow, wondering if the land inside us would ever grow anything again. Some of us have carried letters we could not answer, searched for people we were not sure we would find, opened doors we had sworn to keep shut forever, and perhaps you know what it is to be found by someone you were not looking for. To discover that family does not always begin with blood. Sometimes it begins with a knock at dusk, a single sentence spoken without apology, and the slow, stubborn work of showing up. It is all right if something in this story remains unresolved in your chest. Not everything needs to be understood, to be felt. Not everything needs to be finished to matter. Some things are simply carried, and that is enough. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. All the way through.